Welcome to the Endurance Horse Podcast, where endurance riders from all across the globe gather, sharing their stories, goals, and progress as they train for and compete in endurance events at every level. So kick off your shoes, pull up a chair, and listen as we gather around the virtual campfire and listen to friends from across the world.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Endurance Horse Podcast. I am your host, Christina Hyke, and today I'd like to bring to you the story of how one woman made the leap from the hunter-jumper world to the trails and endurance. She traded in Warmbloods for an incredible Missouri Fox Trotter who would go on to become her decade team horse and her teammate for 3 Tevis buckles. In this episode, we talk about what that transition really looked like, what surprised her, what challenged her, and what she experienced at her very first endurance ride. We also explore what she's learned along the way, not only as a rider, but as a ride manager, and someone who deeply is invested in giving back to the endurance community through education and fundraising. And we cover so much more. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce you to JayaMae Kaur. Without further ado, welcome to another episode of Endurance Horse Podcast. Hi, Jaya. It's Chris Hyke from Endurance Horse Podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. I've been so looking forward to talking to you and talking about the Missouri Fox Trotter and endurance and just touching on several topics. So I will start you out with our first question, which is, how did you get into horses?
How did I get into horses? Gosh, I've been riding since I was 5 years old. My grandmother, maternal grandmother, was a horse girl. I remember my mom telling me stories about how she drove horses cross country from Colorado, Paonia, I think it was Paonia, Colorado, to Southern California when the family moved to the homestead. And if I remember correctly, she was maybe 13. Yeah, so my grandmother was born in 1913 and then drove horses, grew up with horses, and then my mom got the horse bug. So my mom grew up riding, and then my mom had a horse of her own named Sheba, and I heard all kinds of wild stories about Sheba when I was growing up. I remember my mom giving me my first horseback, or signing me up for my first horseback riding lesson when I was 5. And the story goes that my mom was getting me ready for my lesson, had taken me down to the arena to wait for the instructor. I was on, I think, a little pony. And my mom left the gate open just a little bit for the instructor to join us in the arena. And my pony took off and ran away with me all the way back to the barn. But I held on. I didn't fall off. I held on to that pony. And my mom came running after me and found me in the barn aisle, still sitting on top of the pony, waiting to start my lesson. And then that was it. From then on, my mom was like, "This girl is gonna ride."
Oh yeah,
and I did. Yeah, yeah. And then I just kept riding.
See, that's why I love this question, because there's no two stories that are the same. So then, how did you find out about endurance?
So I actually grew up as a hunter-jumper, hunt seat equitation rider in New England, in Connecticut. I came to California. I landed in Northern California when I got into the nursing program at Chico State University. And actually, it was there that I had overheard a professor of mine talking about how her daughter had horses and needed help exercising them. I think I found my way into that conversation somehow and ended up getting introduced to my professor's daughter who needed help exercising her horses. And I remember the first time I showed up at her barn, I was just shocked. I had been riding these very well-groomed, shod, tall Warmbloods in the hunter-jumper world. And she had these 14.3 hand ponies that she rode bareback with rope halters. Their manes weren't pulled. They were barefoot. And she did all this trail riding. And so I ended up hopping on and going down the trail with her and basically fell in love with trail riding through that experience. But she had a Missouri Fox Trotter that I rode pretty consistently. And I remember thinking, I'm not going to, like, this is not going to be a hunter jump. Like, I'm not going to go into the show ring with this horse. What the heck am I going to do? And another friend of mine at the time who would occasionally ride with me said, you should enter the Tevis Cup. And she said it like it was a dare. And I never turned down a challenge. And so I was like, okay, cool. Like, they have trail competitions, and I had heard of the Tevis Cup. I knew that it was 100 miles. I had no idea it was 100 miles in 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea you had to qualify. I knew nothing, but that night I get on my computer and I Google Tevis Cup, and their website comes up, and the first thing I see on the front page of the website is 100 miles one day. And I remember going, oh my gosh, what the heck have I gotten myself into? But at that point I was like, yeah, I'm going to do the Tevis. And so then I just started doing a ton of research, finding out that I had to join the American Endurance Ride Conference, start with like limited distance rides and work my way up and qualify. So it ended up being like this 3-year journey to the Tevis Cup, but it started basically with a dare.
So, and now you're on the board of Tevis?
I am. Yeah. I've been on the board of governors, I think, for 8 or 9 years now. I don't think it's been quite 10 years, but it's getting close. Yeah.
So what made you stick with it to the point that not only have you done Tevis how many times now, and now you're on the board? So what was it about endurance that clicked for you?
That is a good question. I honestly thought I was going to be like one and done. Like I was going to basically fulfill the dare and be like, I did it, and then move on to something different, or maybe get back into hunter jumpers. Who knows? I think what really sealed the deal for me was all of those training miles that I did, and getting to see parts of the country that I wouldn't otherwise have gotten to see. Endurance became just being out in the backcountry with your horse in an area where sometimes there isn't cell phone service. I really found this place where I didn't have to pretend to be anyone else but myself. And I would just be out there and be in awe of the beauty that was around me. And being out in nature, I think, is so healing. And then this bond that I had with my horse. When I was in the hunter jumper world, I worked with my trainer, and my trainer did most of the training. I just went into the show ring and, rode the horse for, 20 minutes or 10 minutes or however long the class was. And it was expensive. And here I got to pay one entry fee and be in the saddle for like 10 hours, or on a 100-miler, be in the saddle for 20 miles. So I really got my money's worth.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it had a lot to do with the bonds that I had with the horse and just being out in the open. And also just, I felt this immense feeling of gratitude to be alive, but also towards my body that I was fit enough, and towards my horse that, wow, like my horse is fit enough to do this, and to go through some crazy technical terrain. So it was also very confidence building too, in that sense.
I think you summed it up really well, because trail riding in general, being out there with your horse, is very grounding, very centering in a world where we can be kind of multitasking and not present. I think horses help you be very present.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that is actually one thing that I have struggled with my whole life. I've always been a very high energy, go, 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 raising children, building a career. And I think the one thing, I shouldn't say I think, I know the one thing I've always struggled with is actually just being present. And I think, being out in the backcountry with my horse, being alone, having to depend just on myself and my horse, and that partnership is very humbling. And I do feel like it's this very spiritual practice of being 100% present and living in the moment that you're in right at that moment.
Can you remember what it was like going to your first endurance rides and what really stood out to you when you look back? Because, we have listeners that are just now finding endurance. We have listeners who, like yourself, who've done Tevis multiple times. We have people that are retired from riding and they love listening to these stories. But what was your endurance early experience like? And are there any tips in there you can give to somebody who's headed out for the first time?
Yes, I'm laughing because my first endurance ride was Whiskey Town Chaser. I think it was, 2010 or 2011 maybe. So Whiskey Town Chaser, I show up and I didn't, because I kind of got into this on a dare and I just Googled Tevis Cup. I didn't know anyone who was an endurance rider at the time. And I didn't know that there was like a green bean program for new riders. I didn't know that I could reach out and find a mentor. I was literally just like kind of winging it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And so I show up to my first ride and I'll never forget, there was Catherine McPhail and Teresa Straub, two endurance riders at the time that were parked very near me. And I'll never forget, they were watching me unload my horse. They told me later that they knew right away, oh, this girl does not know what she's doing. We need to help her. But I unload my horse and right away, you'll see endurance riders getting water. Horses lose so much of their hydration on the trailer ride. And so right away, they unload their horses. The first thing they do is they get water for their horse. That was not the first thing I did because I didn't know about all of that at the time. And so that was when Teresa came over and was like, can I help you get your horse some water? Like, let's fill a water bucket for her. The other kind of funny thing that I did was I didn't bring enough food. I thought that like food was included, I guess. I don't know what I thought, but I like did not bring enough food. So thank God for Catherine McPhail and her daughter, Maddie, and their like supply of bagels. But I didn't have enough food. And then the other thing was I polo wrapped my horse, and I discovered later that less is more in endurance, and anything that might like create heat, you want to not have those things on your horse. And so the polo wrapping was not necessary for the trail. But yeah, I definitely looked like I did not know what I was doing. And then I read the ribbons wrong on the last loop. I was following ribbons that were on my left-hand side instead of on my right-hand side. I still did the mileage. I just did it backwards. So I did get a completion, but I didn't get a placing, but I did get a completion. But so there was, and the other thing was I actually ended up with a corneal abrasion. The horse in front of me had kicked up some dirt, some from the trail, and I got something in my eye and ended up with a corneal abrasion after that first endurance ride. And so I just don't ever ride without eye protection now, whether it's sunglasses or just like clear glasses at night. But yeah, I learned that lesson at my very first endurance ride. So bring more food than you think you need and wear some sort of eye protection and follow ribbons on the right-hand side and always get your horse water first. Those are like my key things.
Can you tell me about what horse or horses have shaped you the most along this journey that you've been in with endurance?
Yes. The very first one that comes to mind is a Solly, Foxfire's little Britches. She's my Missouri Fox Trotter who turns 26 this year. She's the horse I started endurance with. I didn't even know that Arabians were the ones that dominated the sport when I started in endurance. A Solly was just the horse that I was exercising for my professor's daughter, and she ended up becoming my horse. And I bought her for $500 because I was a starving nursing student and I made payments on her. I think it was like a $40 deposit. And I just took her down the trail. She loved the trail and it was the only horse I had at the time. And so I put her in endurance and she did amazing. And she's the first horse that I finished Tevis on. I'm so bonded with a Solly. She is how I started in the sport, how I first finished Tevis. She's my decade team horse. Now she's packing around my 4-year-old daughter, and my son had finished Tevis on her as well in 2017. Yeah, I mean, she's just a phenomenal horse that is a life-changing horse for me. And I don't think we get, every horse that I've ever ridden has taught me something, but there's those few horses that are life-changing for you. And that's what my Missouri Fox Trotter is for me, is my life-changing horse. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good segue to talking about Missouri Fox Trotters, which is our focus in January. So they're not a breed that people first think of when it comes to endurance riding. And
Right.
so from the story you told me about her, kind of fell into your life.
Yes.
You didn't go
Yes.
shopping for a Missouri Fox Trotter. She kind of just
Yep.
almost just an overheard conversation, and she changed your life. Sometimes that's how horses come into the picture for us. So now that you know about endurance a lot, what do you have to say about gaited horses and what they bring to the endurance community that you think deserves a little more recognition?
So the funny thing is I now have 3 Missouri Fox Trotters in my paddock, and all 3 of them have competed in endurance. And it's funny because I grew up with these like 17-hand Warmbloods. I had never ridden a gaited horse until a Solly. The one thing that I love about riding a gaited horse is how smooth they are. They have just a phenomenal gait that is so comfortable to ride. In fact, a Solly has 7 different gaits. She has a walk, an amble, a pace, a foxtrot, a true diagonal trot, a canter, a gallop. And so it makes it really kind of entertaining to ride because sometimes I don't know what gait she's going to pick up, and it's just kind of fun to see, especially when we're going uphill or downhill, how she changes her gait or her pace. The thing about endurance is really all you need is a sound, healthy horse. And if you do the proper training, any horse can do endurance, and especially gaited horses. And the other thing, especially for riders that maybe have had a previous injury or maybe they're a little bit older and just want a smoother ride, some people can't, do a posting trot for 50 miles down the trail. It's just not comfortable for them to ride. And so like gaited horses offer this other option for people that maybe, can't sustain the bounce of the posting trot. Any healthy sound horse can do endurance for sure.
And so Asali has become your decade team horse also. Do you have
Yes.
any tip or things you've learned along the way from that to make a horse able to go that distance of 10 years?
Yes. And I will say that this is like a huge source of pride for me because the thing about being in the hunter jumper world is I was good, but I wasn't great. And at the time when I first entered Tevis or started thinking about Tevis, I was just so in awe of those horses and those riders. And it almost seemed like something that was unattainable for me. Like, could I actually be this good? Is my horse actually this good? And then to actually end up, I think that the decade team thing was an even bigger deal to me than finishing Tevis the first time, the second time. And Asali has 3 Tevis buckles total. I think, honestly, it's just about, when you think about longevity, so much of it has to do with not racing. And the thing is that Asali she was like a slow and steady wins the race horse. She could get the miles done, but she wasn't a top 10 horse. I think one time in our whole career did we ever top 10. And maybe you'll talk to a rider out there who has multiple top 10s and also has a decade team. It's not that that's impossible. I was just conservative in the way that I rode her. And it wasn't even necessarily that I was now I consciously make a decision to ride conservatively. But at that time, I think it was my inexperience in endurance and then also just not having a horse that wanted to race that caused me to ride conservatively. So she really kind of taught me that lesson. But that's what I think preserved her longevity, and also getting adequate rest in the off season. I would give her, a few months off, I think our last ride would be November, and then, we'd be off for the holidays. I wouldn't go back into riding until maybe April. So she'd have a good few months off, and I just let her run around in the paddock. We did light riding only. I might have a few students on her in an arena lesson, but a lot of it, I think, was just adequate rest, riding conservatively, and just letting her be a horse in the off season.
So I would think, because like you said, she has 3 Tevis buckles to her name, and she is a decade team horse, and she's a Missouri Fox Trotter, which that just might surprise people that she's accomplished so much. I think part of it, when you're talking about riding her and you're out in California, it's hot, and generally I think Missouri Fox Trotters can be heavier muscled. How did you get her used to competing in the hot weather, especially Tevis? And what are your tips for cooling off a horse horse that might tend to hold heat more?
That's a good question. So I did a lot of heat training. So training like in July or June, if Tevis was in August, I would literally go out in the middle of the day, like the hottest part of the day, especially if there was like a week where we were having a heat wave, and I would ride. I do a lot of sponging, and I would sponge her whole body, and then scrape and then sponge again. So I did a lot of that. And then I also am pretty liberal with my electrolytes. Asali is a great drinker, and oftentimes she'll drink out the puddle. I mean, she'll drink anywhere. Sometimes she would be drinking out of the dirtiest puddles, and I was like, what the heck are you doing, girl? But I figure she needed that hydration. There also might be minerals in that puddle that she was needing from the dirt. And so anytime she wanted to drink anywhere in whatever water, I just let her do it. And then the other thing that I am really big on, that when I'm working with my students, especially students that want to go to Tevis, I do a lot of cross training with myself and with the horse. So I did a lot of liberty stuff with Asali, like a lot of groundwork, goes in the arena. Like she's not only on the trail, she also works in the arena. The biggest thing is I cross train myself. Every time I rode her at Tevis, I did at least one full canyon, and it was usually the first one, the hardest canyon, on foot. And so I'm a half marathon runner now. I was not when I started in endurance. Trail run, I do CrossFit, I lift weights. I try to keep myself as fit as possible, because I can, if I'm fit, then I can give my horse a break on the trail and get on the ground if I feel like she needs a break. But I also feel like I am a more balanced rider that way too. Like if my body feels good and I feel fit, I'm going to be more balanced on her back when we ride together.
Yeah, I just spoke with a person who also does the same thing. And then I know Jeremy Reynolds also does the same thing, get down and covers a fair amount of miles on their own legs. So that has to help a lot. So before we move off of the Missouri Fox Trotter, is there anything else you would like to say about the Missouri Fox Trotter if somebody is considering them for endurance, or if they have a Missouri Fox Trotter and they are considering endurance?
I would say give it a go. You don't know until you try. You don't know if your horse is going to be an endurance horse until you enter that first ride. And any sound, healthy horse can do endurance with the proper training. So just do it. I mean, like I said, I ended up in endurance with a Missouri Fox Trotter, not planned, totally by default. She was just the horse I had at the time, and she's had a phenomenal career, and really like fulfilled so many of my dreams. I'm like, so yeah, I'm so grateful. Yeah.
So try it. Show up with enough food and water. But show up.
Yes. And pack a few extra bagels. Yeah. Or boiled eggs or whatever you like to eat. Some granola. Yeah. Bring a lot of food. Yes. You and the horse.
So on to the next aspect of this interview. And it is, you are also a ride manager. So how did you get lassoed into that?
I definitely am someone who got bit by the endurance bug for sure. It became not just, I'm going to finish the Tevis and be done. It became, I don't know if you want to call it an addiction, an obsession, a passion, pick your word, but any one of those probably fits. I was approached in 2014 by actually a colleague of mine who was also my former nursing professor at Chico State. There was a student in the Chico State nursing program named Christina Chesterman who had passed away in 2013. She was actually hit by a drunk driver when she was riding her bicycle home from the university after studying. And she happened to be an equestrian. She was a dressage rider. I have immense respect for dressage riders. She was a dressage rider, and after her passing, my colleague and her parents and kind of a band of people had decided that they wanted to open up this medical clinic in Nigeria in memory of her. She had wanted to work with Doctors Without Borders, and so they picked Nigeria. I was approached because they basically asked if I could help with this project. My dad was born in Kisumu, Kenya, and they were like, would you want to go to Africa and help build this clinic? That was not a possibility for me because I was raising children. I'm still raising children. But I started doing some brainstorming, and I was like, hey, I could fundraise. Like, I bet you I could raise money to build this clinic, and we could do it by hosting an endurance ride. And so that was the birth of the Christina Chesterman Memorial Ride in 2014. And this year, yeah, we've been doing it every single year since. So this is what year 12. And I've been the ride manager since then. I am very proud of the trail. It has definitely changed and morphed and gotten better, I think, since our first endurance ride. But I created a 50-mile course and a 35-mile course just on trails that I was training on in my backyard. And that's what became the Christina Chesterman Memorial Ride. And it raises money. We're actually the number one fundraiser for this medical clinic that is now built and operating and has the full staff and is offering vital medical services to the people in its area.
That's amazing. And I love when I find that somebody has married the two things, endurance and fundraising. I just really love that. And I wish I saw it more. Don't you?
Yeah.
Explain how that can be such a good thing for the endurance community and for the fundraising. Because I think when I get to ride for a purpose, it energizes me and makes me want to go and makes me excited to go do this thing, because then it's philanthropic. It's outside of just you and doing this with your horse to get miles or enjoy nature. Now you ride with purpose.
Yeah, I will say that the riders that have attended my ride have said that there is just something different about my ride. And I have riders that have come almost every single year since the birth of the ride, either as a rider or a volunteer or a crew member. But I have been told that my ride does feel a little bit different for that reason. And part of it is, yes, they really feel like their ride entry money is going to a good cause. A lot of it also has to do with the fact that Christina's parents attend the ride every year and share something about Christina. They share something about the clinic in Nigeria. And so it really helps them feel connected to this community here that we have. And that they're really giving back. And we're not just serving our local community by remembering Christina and the legacy that she has left. She was only 21 when she passed, but we're also reaching out to this community across the world and making a difference in another country, that when we're doing it without actually having to go there, which I hope to actually go there one day and volunteer, especially as a nurse, volunteer some hours at that clinic. That is like on my bucket list. I'm actually a little bit embarrassed to say I haven't been to the clinic myself, and I do hope to go. But just to be able to know that our money is helping somebody all the way across the world, it to me, it feels very powerful and makes me feel like we're all really connected in this world. Like all of us, every single human, we're all just here doing the best that we can with the tools that we have, and we're all very interconnected.
I love that. That's how I feel about the podcast. That's how I feel about Warhorse and the whole thing.
Yeah.
What would you say if somebody's listening and they either do endurance or they used to do endurance, but they have a great idea for a ride? As a ride manager, what steps do you think they should take next if they have an idea sketched out on paper and would like to host a ride?
I would say definitely, if you haven't already, volunteer at a ride. Put some hours in volunteering just so that you get an idea of how it works on the other side, because being a rider is very different than being a volunteer. You see it differently from different eyes. And then reach out to AERC. In our region, I reach out to Tammy. There are so many people within the American Endurance Ride Conference that can help you start a ride. And like for me, Rob Lydon, he's a veterinarian. He's also a rider. He has also finished Tevis, but he was the one, and the Stalley family, Jennifer Stalley, they used to manage Cache Creek Ridge Ride. And I had a lot of support when I put on my first ride. I mean, just with them, the Stalleys and Rob really mentoring me and giving me advice and telling me, how to put things in place, you will get a lot of support. And so if you haven't, we always need ride managers. And if you have an idea, we've lost so many rides for permitting reasons. Land has gotten bought that it doesn't exist anymore in that area. There's just so many reasons why all these some endurance rides have disappeared. And so we always need rides. We always need ride managers. And there's a lot of support out there. So if you even have an inkling of an idea, yeah, I think see what you can do to get it moving forward. It's very rewarding being a ride manager. I will say that. It is incredibly rewarding.
It must be if you keep coming back to it. And I think what a beautiful cause. I mean, this seemed very lined up for you on your path in life.
Mhm.
And it sounds like a beautiful thing. Is there a way people can donate to that?
So if they want to email, it's kcmemorialride@gmail.com. That's our official email address for the ride, kcmemorialride@gmail.com. They can email me directly and I can tell them how they can donate. We accept checks that could be made directly out to the foundation that funds the clinic. They could also donate to the ride. We're always looking for ride prizes for our riders that complete the ride. We're also always looking for financial donations to help us pay our veterinarian to put on the ride. So there's various ways that they can donate, and they can donate directly to the clinic or they can donate directly to the ride. But if they email me, then I can kind of put them in the right direction.
So let's do a mini ad here for this ride. Tell me where it's held and when it's held.
So this year it's going to be on Saturday, May 16th, 2026. Our ride camp is Meadowbrook Ranch in Magalia. We have a 50-miler and a 35-miler and a 10-mile fun ride.
This is in California.
Yes, in Northern California.
What are the trails like at this ride?
We have mountain trails, so it's not a flat course. I would say moderate, but it's beautiful. A lot of our elevation gain is very gradual. We have a lot of shaded trails. We have 2-track logging roads, but then we also have a little bit of single track. We've got just enough technical to make it interesting without making it difficult. It's beautiful. You get views. There are some trails that can be sunny, but it's a good time of year before it gets like super, super hot.
Tell me about your 10-mile fun ride.
So the 10-mile fun ride starts actually in ride camp, and they ride this beautiful loop in ride camp. You actually get to see the pond. There's multiple ponds inside ride camp, which are just beautiful. So they get this like beautiful little loop inside ride camp, but then they actually also leave ride camp and we put you out on some trails where there's some flumes, and then they do kind of like a little lollipop loop and they come back to camp. And the fun ride is just that. It's fun. You can ride as slow as you want and just be part of the Christina Chesterman community and have a great day without, actually racing if you don't want to race. Yeah.
I love this. And I talked with Tammy Rougeau about the Virginia City 100 ride and their community and how they involve people. I was trying to say involve, but I said evolve, but maybe it kind of fits because you are exposing people with a low pressure supported event where they can have a fun ride, whether they used to ride endurance and now their horse isn't up to it, but it can do 10 miles, or whether it's somebody who just trail rides, not interested in endurance. And I love this because I've talked to a couple different people about these fun rides. And so maybe it's not, Grandma Jones that's coming to do the ride that you're inspiring at the endurance ride when you hold these 10-mile fun rides. Maybe it's their grandkids or their niece or their neighbor that they brought with them. And I think it's kind of, maybe it was just a slip there when I said evolve, but you kind of you're involving them, including them with the sport, and they could evolve into an endurance rider. So if they wanted to, so that brings me beautifully to the next section here, which was when you look at the future of endurance, what gives you hope? For me, hearing you say you're doing these fun rides and this wonderful ride you're hosting, that gives me hope.
Thank you. I am a firm believer that juniors are the future of our sport. I have 4 children of my own, and so the joke has been every time I get pregnant that I'm bringing another endurance rider into the world. I'm securing the future of the Christina Chesterman Memorial Ride. That's kind of been the joke. But I also teach horseback riding lessons in addition to being a nurse, and I have brought a lot of juniors up into the sport. And I firmly believe that juniors are the future of our sport. And I've gotten a lot of juniors into the sport whose parents don't ride, because it used to be that juniors only got into the sport because their parents rode. Because it's difficult to be a junior in endurance and not have a parent that rides, because you have to have a sponsor take you down the trail. You have to have, it's a whole weekend thing. You have to get there the day before the ride to vet in. You got a trailer there. It's a whole big thing. So I think if, more instructors or endurance riders, they don't have to be instructors, they could just be endurance riders, adult endurance riders are willing to take juniors under their wing, that's the future of our sport. And whether that means that you just volunteer to sponsor a junior down the trail for, one ride one day. I'm also a huge supporter of ride managers offering a junior discount. I offer a junior discount. I even offer a young rider discount. So young riders are up to age 21. So whatever we can do to support the juniors, I think is definitely. I also offer really awesome junior awards at my ride too. Like we kind of spoil the juniors.
Are you aware of EDRA? They pay for the junior to ride.
I did not. I'm familiar with that organization. I did not know that they support juniors in that way, and that is amazing.
Yeah, I have an interview with them that I just did. I was just going to tell you that because I think you're in that area, like it's kind of the Pacific Northwest area, but they will pay for the juniors. They'll pay the ride manager for the juniors.
Oh, that's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know we're technically in the West region.
Mm-hmm.
Pacific Northwest, I think, is Oregon, Washington, but I wonder if they might count us as part of that region. I'll have to reach out and ask them.
Well, I don't think it's complicated to become an EDRA ride.
Okay.
Just to be at the ride. But it sounds like they're trying to expand. And I know around here, rides are endorsements. Like they would have, UMACRA, Arabian horse, could be the Appaloosa horse endorsed, draw and AERC. So I think adding EDRA wouldn't be...
would not be a bad thing. Yeah.
Would not be a bad thing. And then juniors ride for free. I believe they pay the ride manager. Yeah.
I'll have to look into that. No, thank you for that. Yeah. Cool.
I had never heard of EDRA, and somebody brought it up during an interview, and I was like, I'm going to have to go look at what that is. And so I looked it up, and then I had them on, and it seems complementary. I mean, somebody could say it might be competitive with AERC, but I don't think so. I think it's complementary.
Yeah. I just did my first ride and tie last June with my partner. We went up to the Pacific Crest Endurance Ride in Oregon. We had such a blast.
Oh, wow.
And ride and tie is so fun. In fact, we rode a Solly. Yeah, she's such a safe, my partner's a relatively new equestrian, and she's such a safe, solid horse with so much trail experience. And she'll tie to a tree. And so we took the 25-year-old Missouri Fox Trotter and did our first ride and tie, and she did amazing. And we had such a blast. And I thought about maybe getting a ride and tie at the Christina Chesterman Memorial Ride.
Oh, you should. They are so supportive. Yeah. I want to say we had Ride and Tie on the podcast early on, and then I think AERC kind of embraced them now. It's fabulous. Yeah, I think you should.
Yeah.
And they would love to expand. And they are huge on youth. Youth is the future of the sport. So maybe a little networking.
I love it.
Sidetracked. But I had never heard of EDRA, but it's over a decade old and it's doing well. And they're very encouraging, just welcoming to promote new riders. And so, I think you might get your juniors paid for and get more people to try. And I think that works out really well. So now I have to look at my notes and segue us out of this.
Oh, that's funny.
So what challenges do you think our sport needs to honestly face in the upcoming years?
That is a good question. Ask it one more time because I need it to sink in.
What challenges do you think that the sport needs to honestly face in the next coming years? And what kind of prompts me to ask this question is I came across a number recently that said since 2003, we have lost nearly 25% of the horses in this country. So it's dropped from around, I think it was around 9 million plus to under 7 million horses now. So we all kind of get that perception that things are shrinking. Endurance rides are shrinking. Horse registries are struggling. It's not specific to one discipline necessarily. But to me, I feel like that's something we have to honestly face and maybe be flexible and maybe change back to some grassroots. Do you know what I mean? Like just doing the grassroots type thing, being really open, welcoming to new people.
Yeah. Wow. That statistic makes me a little bit sad because I just think about how immensely healing horses have been in my personal life, and also watching students in my program who have had anxiety and they come to lessons and their parents tell me that their anxiety has lessened. And I'm not a therapeutic riding program.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I'm not even specifically working on therapy issues. Horses are just naturally healing. And I see confidence building in young students. I see teenage girls become more assertive, especially in their body language, but then that translates to verbal language. And I just see this sense of responsibility that the kids taking care of the horses and how much pride they have in that responsibility. And then having these sports like endurance or, whether it's barrel racing or hunter jumpers or dressage or gymkhana, whatever it ends up being, it also just allows for a fun outlet and a lot of teamwork. And I hate to see that so many equestrian sports are struggling, but I know that they are. And I think discovering what the real issue is, and I don't know, a few things come to mind. I don't know if it's, horses are expensive. I don't know if it's a financial issue. And so then I think about, how can we make it more affordable or make lessons more accessible? I do know that in my area, Butte County, we have some charter schools that will actually pay for students to take lessons as part of like their physical education in their homeschool program.
Wow.
And so looking into more programs like that, other things come to mind too, especially when I think of endurance riding, and it's the loss of trails. And so fighting for our backcountry trails is like a big one that I think about, and how to do that and how to preserve these areas where we can ride. Yeah. I don't know. It's so multi-layered. It's so multi-layered. And I think getting more people together that really have a passion for figuring out like what are the reasons and the barriers and how can we overcome them and make this more accessible to more people.
Yeah, because if you go back to your story, when you were in college, it was somebody making a horse accessible to you to trail ride.
Yeah.
And it kind of puts me in mind of Julie Sur's book, where she had been without a horse for a while, but then she was exercising somebody's horse for them. And it's making horses available, I think. And a lot of things are less affordable than they used to be. Like housing is less affordable than it used to be. And horses are less affordable than they used to be. You almost have to be the person giving the gateway drug to the person by saying, come out and see my horse. Like I did this. I will probably not leave this in here. Well, maybe I will. But I was at a church for the first time. Ironically, did not know this young woman had been at the first church for the first time too. And she was like 9-10 years old. And she had heard me because they were like, oh, introduce yourself. And I just assumed they belonged to this church. What was the chances we were both there for the first time? But she kind of followed me around, and she was very emo. Do you know what I mean? Like she was at like 9-10 years old. Her hair was blue. It looked like Cousin It. It was down to her waist. She had these huge black pants with chains all over them. She wore these like very tight, like dog color looking like necklaces, And she just, I couldn't even see her face. And she followed me around and she said, do you have horses? And I said, I do. And her mom and I hit it off. And we both like to talk. And so I said, sure, come out and see my horses. Well, I can tell you now today, she's in charge of a huge therapy riding place nearby.
Wow.
Because of horses, I had a job training at this stable. And then I said, why don't you, she was homeschooled. And I said, why don't you involve her? Let her come out. Let her learn to, groom and do these things. So they let her come out. They paid her a little bit of money. And then I left that job and I said, you should just hire her in. And they did. And then she became a trainer. From there, she went to become an equine therapist. And now she runs this thing. But it's funny because of the horses, she, I told her one day she was struggling to ride the canter. And I said, honey, these pants are not doing you any favor. They're like so big. She changed the kind of pants she wore for the horse. She changed the kind of shoes she wore for the horse. She changed the kind of jewelry she wore for the horse. She completely evolved out of that phase. And everything she does now is about a horse. And she went to school to learn how to trim her horse's own feet. Like horses completely changed her.
Yeah. Yeah.
because she whispered to me, "Do you have a
Mm-hmm.
horse?" And I said, "I do. Come see it."
I love that story. That's just like how I kind of snuck myself. I overheard this conversation and snuck myself into it. And yeah, man, yeah, having access. It's funny because so I told you that I bought a Solly for $500 and put a $40 down payment and made. So the woman I got a Solly from, she's this amazing woman, cancer survivor. And she's just, I could say so many amazing things about Jennifer, but she had originally bought a Solly for $4,500. A Solly was not for sale. She just ended up seeing this bond that I had with her. She basically was like, okay, I'll sell her to you. And I was like, well, I don't have any money. I'm a starving nursing student. And she was like, okay, $500 and you can make payments. But then what that did too was then when I took a Solly, I eventually ended up getting my own horse property and took a Solly to my own property. It opened up the door for her to get more horses, and she ended up getting a couple rescue horses. And now she probably even has more than 2 rescue horses. Actually, my former hoof trimmer, who's now retired, had once said to me, horses leave us when another one needs to come into our lives. You know, for Jennifer, she just wanted a Solly to be loved and taken care of. She saw this bond that I had with her. You know, it wasn't about selling her for money. And it was just, and actually, when we finished Tevis Cup, I'll never forget Jennifer calling me and saying, you were the right person for this horse. Nobody else could have ridden her to her potential. And I thought, what an amazing compliment. She just had no ego about any of it, you know, whereas some people would have been like, oh, dang, that was a Tevis horse. I never should have sold that horse. No, I mean, there was just no ego. I mean, Jennifer just genuinely cares about the horse, and she has her own riding program where she takes kids out and does trail rides bareback in rope halters through Bidwell Park. Like, it's just amazing. Yeah. I love stories like that. It gives me the chills. Yeah.
If you could encourage one mindset shift for our sport that would help it thrive and open up the grassroots for more people, what would that be?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think we're already going in this direction of all inclusivity, I'm not even saying the word right, all inclusivity. I know that our sport has become very welcoming, or we're working in that direction to really welcome all breeds, all people, all fitness levels. And I'm seeing that with so many more intro rides popping up and so many more fun rides. And it's not just about, you know, the 50-mile endurance ride anymore. We're also an accomplishment to complete a limited distance ride, a 25-mile ride, a 30-mile ride. And so we're recognizing those riders and those horses now too, more than I think we used to. And so I think that's a huge part of it is just honestly, the word that comes to mind is community. It's so much more than just the sport. It is the community. I will tell you that when I lost my home and my business and the hospital that I worked for in 2018 in the Paradise Camp Fire, it was my endurance family that raised over $17,000 for me on a GoFundMe. But on top of that, I had veterinarians come out of the woodwork. I mean, Jamie Kerr was like, bring your horse, because I had 2 horses, unfortunately, that we were not able to evacuate because the fire just moved so quickly. We had to get out of there. And I just did not get horses loaded up on trailers in enough time. I mean, it was a very scary fire, a very scary evacuation. And Jamie said, just bring your horses here. Get them here. I will treat them. And I will treat them for free. An endurance rider housed us for 6 months after the fire. And it was endurance riders bringing me hay for the horses. It was endurance riders, my friend Karen Gunderson, who took in my horses and let them live on her property because mine was destroyed in the camp. I mean, it's so much more than just this sport. It is a community. And I think fostering that community and giving people a place where they belong is what is really going to keep the sport alive and thriving.
That's beautifully said. And I wasn't sure if you wanted to bring up the fire. I know you lost a horse as a result of it. And I know last night was probably a pretty hard night for you as you went up there and rode there one last time. Is there anything you would like to share about that?
Just that it's been a long journey of rebuilding and rebirth. I also had other traumas in there. My dad passed away. I also, the new property, the new home that in my new area where I live was hit by another fire in 2024, the Park Fire. Luckily, it was just partial damage, not total damage, but we're still rebuilding from that fire now. But you know, it's funny because the more, I don't want to say the more trauma that I go through, everyone, especially the older we get, it's just more life that we've lived, really. But what I'm seeing is that grief can actually soften us. And that is something that I'm really embracing. Everything that I've gone through in the last few years has really allowed me to soften even more, to have more patience, to have more compassion, and also to know that everybody has a story. And our stories are fascinating. And, you can't have the joy without the sadness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because I also think about, when I think about really, really tough times in my life, this may sound kind of funny, but I'll walk into my closet and I'll see my Tevis belts right there with their belt buckles. And I remember crossing the finish line in 2014 and accomplishing something that I never thought I could do. And I had the most fantastic ride. I mean, starting in Tahoe, at 5:15 in the morning and traveling 100 miles on this historic, magical trail. And then you end up in Auburn, 24 hours later. I mean, it was just the most incredible journey. And it's moments like that. And also when I think about giving birth to my children and my daughter, I had her at home and caught her in the birth tub myself. I caught my own baby. There's been moments in my life that I'm just like, wow. And you don't get those moments without also having the struggles,
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm really down in this place of I'm struggling and I'm sad, and I just think, there's going to be another Tevis Cup. There's got to be another one of those.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be on top of the mountain again. We have to get down to the valley to be able to climb up to the mountain, and it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I have a stallion that I got him as a 4-year-old unstarted. He is a CMK Arab, and I had him shipped from Canada sight unseen, and he's turned into this amazing horse. And I've started him under saddle. He's the first stallion that I've ever started under saddle. And I've had a journey with him, and he's taught me a lot. We've done a few 50-mile rides, and I actually rode him. It was him that I rode yesterday out of the property that I lost in the campfire. I rode some of my old trails that I hadn't ridden since before the campfire, and had a pretty emotional day with him yesterday. And I'm hoping he'll be my next. I was imagining, visualizing crossing the finish line of Tevis with him one day. So that's how my day ended yesterday. It was, yeah.
Yeah, we were supposed to talk yesterday, but that sounded like a more important thing for you to be focused on,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
those, people can say dream all they want, and that's digested quickly and easily in our society if you say dream, but when you visualize, it's the same
Mhm.
thing. And I think that's where your dreams begin, is when you
Yeah.
start visualizing like that and you picture this thing
Mhm.
happening, and you have to put your energy and your mind forward into a path so that you have that
Mhm.
path to go on.
Yeah.
So is there anything we didn't talk about today that feels important for people to know about you, your horses, or the journey that you're on?
That's a good question. I would just like to say that I have such a huge passion for horses and for endurance riding. I'm actually also hoping to start doing some retreats here and bringing people here to do groundwork and liberty work with horses. I have such a passion for just horses in general, but also for endurance riding. And I am always willing to mentor. My email is always open. If you want to ask me questions about horses, about endurance riding, I absolutely love getting people excited about riding and being on our trails. So shoot me a line. I will answer your email.
So did you want to share a little bit about Lightfoot Horse Farm?
Sure. Yeah. It's what I call a whole horsemanship program. I teach more than just riding lessons. I also teach groundwork, liberty, care of the horse. I do lessons with my students on learning tack, learning anatomy, learning some basic first aid or how to recognize when to call the vet. So it's a whole horsemanship program, and I do everything from private lessons, semi-private, to I host a monthly group lesson, and we do bareback riding. I do teach some hunt seat equitation, and I have a couple students that are learning to jump. We're going over cross rails right now. I do a lot of trail lessons. I mean, everything from 2-hour trail lesson to half day, night rides, full day, all that. I have brought students into Tevis. So, I mean, if I have students that have that goal, I will take them all the way to Tevis. But the other thing that I'm starting to incorporate is retreat, bringing people here for a healing experience. And I'm actually collaborating with some other women. I have a licensed therapist who does yoga and breath work. Moving your body is so healing. So we're incorporating some movement stuff. We're also incorporating some art with a life coach that's on staff, but we're incorporating that all with the horses and just being in the presence of horses. And I do some liberty exercises we hosted one retreat right before the park fire. And then the park fire hit us. And now we're in the process of actually rebuilding because we did lose a deck. We lost a client bathroom and we had to repair all of our fencing so we could bring the horses home. We are living back at home. The horses are here and we're getting ready to rebuild some of the outbuildings that we lost so that we can restart our retreat. That's a huge passion of mine, is just the healing power of horses and being in their presence. I think they're such majestic animals. So lightfoothorsefarm.com is our website. Yeah.
And they can find you on Facebook too, correct?
Yes, I'm on Facebook. Lightfoot Horse Farm has a Facebook page out there, and I'm always willing to talk horses.
I was checking out your Lightfoot, right? It's Lightfoot Horse Farm.
Lightfoot Horse Farm, yep.
So how did that name come about?
My grandmother, actually, her very first maternal grandmother, her very first horse was named Lightfoot. The story is actually on my website, on our About page. My grandmother had a horse named Lightfoot when she was a child, and I thought it was perfect because of a Solly, my Missouri Fox Trotter, because we think of gaited horses as being light in their gait, like so smooth and light, sure-footed. And so when I found out my grandma's first horse was named Lightfoot, and then it seemed to fit for the whole gaited horse thing. Even though I'm not a gaited horse farm, I've got a lot of Arabians here too, as well as my 3 Missouri Fox Trotters. It just because of Solly is my heart horse and, my first Tevis horse, my first, decade team horse, like she's it. She's the it girl here. And so Lightfoot Horse Farm was just a perfect name. It was a very easy choice. Yeah.
That's fabulous. Well, I have taken up way more of your time than I planned. I'm so sorry for that.
That's okay.
Well, it has been wonderful getting to know you through this conversation. And I love your origin story from, from the beginning of never letting go of that pony that tore back to the barn. I think we've all known a horse or a pony that's done that. And we all know how phenomenal that is at age 5 to have held on for that and still went through with the lesson. So I think that foretold your future, that you were going to hold on to horses the rest of your life and never let go.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate your time. And anytime you want to come back to Endurance Horse Podcast, you just give me a call and let me know, and we will have you back on.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. And that's a wrap for this episode of Endurance Horse Podcast. I hope you've enjoyed learning more about the Missouri Fox Trotters this January as part of our Year of the Horse celebration. Each month this year, we'll be highlighting a different breed and the riders who love them. Our hope is to show you that every breed has a place in endurance riding, and that horses of all kinds can achieve great things at any distance. And before we go, if you're still listening, I just want to say thank you for going the distance with us and listening all the way to the end. We truly appreciate you. Endurance Horse Podcast exists because of listeners who care about the horses and the stories that the sport is made of. Endurance Horse Podcast is free and commercial free, but we do rely on your support to keep it going. Here are a few simple ways you can help us. You can share this episode with a friend, and hopefully they'll share it to a friend, or you can just share it to social media and encourage other people to take a listen. One way, with a real tangible way for me, if you would like to support the podcast, you can join one of our Warhorse Endurance Challenges at www.warhorseendurance.com. However you choose to support the show, please know how grateful we are that you are here, and thank you. This is Endurance Horse Podcast, signing off for now. Every mile a memory.